as an assistant coach, and she graduated. I don't know if she graduated.
Okay, here we go. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's a workshop meeting of the town board, and tonight's topic is the recreation department.
All right. So I'm not sure if Rich Tamburino is going to be able to make it.
No,
Were you
I
able
think
to
he has
speak with him
work
on the phone?
tonight. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's been running our baseball softball program. He's the president of our Little League organization. They have won their games, and so they are going to be going to Rochester, New York, for about a week. And we are unique in our program where Little League baseball we fund as a town. Some organizations, it's privately run through the Little League organization, and so they charge like anywhere from 100 to 300 per kid to participate all the way across the board. Our program is free for residents and costs $10 for non-residents. And then sponsors cover the uniform costs and everything we get at the start of the season in order to make the season possible. This is the first time, I believe, that our team has been successful either in baseball, because back when I played, we've had district champions, or softball. This is the first time that they've gone past districts, and so there's a big travel requirement to go out to Rochester. Because our league is a town program, not necessarily a private organization. There was a little bit of a concern for some parents being able to afford a hotel and all that stuff for the 5 days that the tournament lasts out there. And if you think about it, it's not cheap. You know, it's probably about, I think Rich might have a more accurate number, but for all the athletes for the entire week, I believe is $7,500. And that's with a hotel that they picked that has a good cancellation policy. And we were talking about how, you know, the businesses that there are businesses willing to support, and it has been spoken for. But the issue is getting, like, we as a town obviously can't write the check to a hotel for the hotel cost of a private citizen, you know, for our program and stuff like that. And so Rich has been working super hard. Dara's working super hard, and they're able to bring a nonprofit into the situation. So that way there can be the businesses that donate can do a tax deductible donation. And then that organization is then able to use that money to pay for some of, if not all, the cost of the hotel for our team to be able to go there, stay there, play in the tournament, and hopefully win the whole thing. They had a great regular season, 17-0, and now with these other games, I mean, I think their record's probably like 20-0 now, maybe even 21. So that's kind of what we had going on, what we've been working on this week. And so if anybody's watching this,
Give money.
do you have more information about that? Because I know you were working the phones today.
I know that Mindy Alford is going to be walking around with her hand out, and she will have all the information about how to make a donation. So,
and I'm sure Rich will be able to put that on the Facebook page for the Pine Plains Baseball Softball. We'll also share that link on our recreation page.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we have with softball. I just got over here from summer track. That is starting up. That's going to be Monday nights from 6 until 7:30, and then at around 7 to 7:30 is also an older kid program. So we've got younger kids, so pretty much below 8 years old. Like, as long as you can walk, we can put you on the track and have you go in between the lines. And then up till about 14. And then anyone older than that would do the later session, and that's going to be run by varsity coaches like myself who are going to be there. Some of my assistant coaches are going to be there to volunteer their time, run that, and then hopefully the athletes that participate in that help us run the younger things. So that's going on now. And then beach and camp. And so I can let Jen take it away with that. And
Do you
then
want to talk about our meeting with?
sure. I wasn't sure how we want to go about the whole thing, or
Well, I just thought I would mention this to you guys because I've been feeling somewhat terrorized by the appearance of the Department of Health at the beach. And I expressed this to them and to the county executive, and lo and behold, they came up. So Michael and I and Ken Pruser, who's our USDA guy, and Matt was there, and we met with them. And there's a new gal kind of running the out.
Michelle is.
well, so
normal one,
Michelle is
She's
the
not
normal
running
one.
it,
The new head of the health department, I'm drawing a blank on her name.
Carrie, yes, Carrie.
Carrie Teague. And so we got to meet her, and try to, with Ken's help, impart some wisdom about lake testing, which, depending on which expert you talk to, there are different ways to do it. And there are what the lake experts think of as getting a correct analysis, and then what the Department of Health thinks. And it's been a little difficult to get some consensus on how to do this, even though the scientists and the lake experts are.
So we're really shallow, and the way that
Yeah.
they take their samples is right from the shore, and then they have a 12-foot pole.
Yeah.
But the issue with our beach is at 12 feet.
I was also down there
It's-
when the intern came to do it this time.
Yeah,
They didn't have their pole with them, so I
Right.
had a lifeguard go out and take the deep water sample.
yeah, because they're not getting an accurate.
Yeah, we're
So-
only like, 2 to 3 feet deep, like, so it's all the water that's just like sitting there with the sand, and it doesn't move as much as the water that's actually, like, for a deep water sample, they're not actually getting a deep water sample, they're getting another shallow sample, so.
So we just, made sure that the kids who are working there are on it in terms of cleaning everything up and all the time. And then, we tried to get through to the gals that we thought they should not do what you evidently found them doing.
Yeah.
So
And this has been something I've been talking to them about for a really long time.
I know.
Yeah, because the thing is too, and like we brought it up in the meeting is for the longest time they were like, do this, and we did do it to the letter. And then this year the complaint was the amount of weeds in there. And I mean, now the water isn't nearly as low as it was at the start of the season. It's probably gone up a couple inches across the whole lake. But it did kind of feel like, okay, it's like, what else can we do? And I think the meeting was productive because we did end up finding out like even if we do meet all these standards, it's not a guarantee that the water is going to be up to code for people to use. And then we talked about different solutions, whether it's aeration, having somebody come and remove the weeds, doing all of those things. But it's going to be a community-wide and a really big effort because we own the land and access to the lake, but there are other stakeholders to that. And so like, it's not as simple as like a pond like Stanfordville where they can treat the water with chemicals, because we can't do that because it's a huge ecosystem and, we don't own the entire lake. And after talking to them, a lot of the stuff we've been encountering definitely seems to be par for the course with even the county run lakes. So, I mean, it's something that we're going to be dealing with forever. And based on that meeting, I took some notes, and I kind of think today would be a good day to just kind of like go through lessons learned from my experience, your experience, what we got out of the meeting, and just kind of see how as a town we can kind of attack this.
I just want to add one thing, which is that there is a new weed in the lake that has appeared in the last year, which they have not been fighting. I believe it's the milfoil. You cannot just cut it. You have to pull it up by the roots. You have to get a diver, pull it up by the roots and carry it out. And Twin Islands Lake, you and I have been talking to Twin Islands Lake a lot, and they're dealing with the same thing. So it's coming in probably from there. or whatever,
And
but
and that's unique this year because
it's new.
you know, it might sound insensitive, but you know, when we're trying to set up our beach for the safety stuff, like they say there's too many weeds, like, you know, my first instinct, let's go in there and just cut them, take them out, the weeds are gone. You know, but as you said, you know, now we're aware that
So we're sending
well, it's an environmental
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And so that's something that we have to navigate and plan ahead for because, you know, it ended up being kind of sprung upon us and Jen went ahead and had scheduled the guy to come and pull it out. And me and her talked about that, how, you know, I felt there was not that much communication between us in terms of that decision. I would have liked to have been a little bit more privy to that. But ultimately, you know, it most likely was the right decision in terms of the health of the lake.
It was milfoil.
So I'm not sure what type of weed it ended up being,
It's a really
but
bad one that if you cut it, it actually,
Well, it has to be an email.
Opens.
Do you guys have an email from the person?
Pardon?
Like, do you have an email from the diver?
I haven't
Go-
hired a diver. I
Oh.
hired a company called Curtis.
Oh,
They came in
okay.
with a big, huge machine. It
Okay.
goes in the water. I have pictures of it. It's pretty amazing, actually. Goes in the water and they do this in all the lakes. Like this is like something that people do to keep their lakes, like their swimming areas maintained. But the milfoil is a problem, but the milfoil wasn't what was the problem in the swimming area. The problem in the swimming area, I mean, I'm sure some milfoil is a problem, but the problem in the swimming area was the actual overgrowth from the temperatures and the weather and just the low water. The weeds were just, I've actually never seen it like that before. It was everywhere. It wasn't just in one section. It was like covering the entire swimming area.
So it was a hazard to people
a
swimming though,
hazard.
just so like it was between the
That's-
ropes and it was too
That's-
rough, so it had to be done.
But the milfoil is a problem too because it's growing up. So there's like
Yeah.
a bunch of things
So-
going on. And this is
so I
the
guess
first year that
that-
we've taken multiple steps to like combat the water. And from what I've heard, and I could be wrong, I mean, I've only been here for 17 years, but the lake water has been a problem like forever, right? Like these tests and the goose droppings and everything. So taking the steps that we're taking is a start to like actually, you know, making some changes. I mean, we've never gone as far as to work with these geese people, you know. and
yeah, and that's
pulling-
huge.
Getting the weeds, like, I agree, you can't just take everything out, but starting with something really like trying to clean out the swimming area and make it, I mean, it was a
So-
swimming.
I think a curtain drain would go a long way.
And the next step that Ken said was aeration.
Cause the
So-
curtain drain though, like they're saying a lot of it is from just the years of the goose poop being up from it. So whenever we get a lot of water, it flows down towards the lake into our swimming area.
And also.
So I think
about
if
what
we
a
put a
swimming
curtain
area is.
drain down
There's no
there,
movement
there's
in
a like a stream type thing where we can have it flow to daylight there and enter the lake there. We're not changing anything, we're not adding anything to it, but instead of the runoff going directly into our swimming area, it will just be put into the lake a little bit for like down. So all that runoff, instead of all, you know, the potential feces going in, it should catch it, bring it down and not have it enter there, which could bring a count down.
I guess I would agree. My thoughts on this are to actually get somebody who knows about this and speak to a professional and come up with a plan, like a 2-year plan
The
for what.
CAC has done a lot of research. They have very accurate surveys of all the species of organism, including milfoil, which I don't think was in Sissing last year, right?
Right, no, this is a big
Brand
problem.
new thing.
And so guess what we're gonna be dealing with next year?
But they researched a number of different aeration systems of different sizes, and a few other options, but certainly they've looked into extensively the herbicidal treatments too, I think that have been done on
Yeah,
Twin Island.
yeah.
So like coming up with a plan, like that we can deal with all this stuff. So
Well,
that
who
way
you
it's
should
And-
not.
and that's-
talk to, 'cause
and
we
that's
talked
kind
to
of-
the Board of Health, they didn't know what they were doing. I feel Ken is probably another good person. He doesn't really know what to do either. So I mean, about the professional, like, we don't know who to talk to anymore.
Right, well, maybe there's somebody that.
Like, that's
Well,
why, like,
I mean, the meeting was productive and they did make some recommendations that I'd also like to build upon for us, because I mean, the health department people were like, well, and when we walked around, I mean, there was, like undergarments, geese droppings, like there was stuff all over. And so, when we do have, the issue where we do feel like every single time it is something new, but then when the health department comes there and there is
Yeah.
poop that we're stepping over and that kind of stuff, it does kind of undermine the credibility of the other issues we feel we are having. So like, it's kind of like, we got to address all that stuff. And so my thought was, after that meeting, I jotted down some stuff planned for the long term is work on hiring staff in March. So that way there we know who we have, because the health department said, like, in April, you should have people down there picking up the poop ahead of time.
And I just want to
That's kind of a
remind
tough.
everybody that Ken said we were not allowed to do that this year. So I just want to remind everybody that I was not allowed to have staff working
Yep.
until the beach
And-
opened, because they wanted to.
And that's the whole confluence of events we want to prevent as we go forward with this, because I think he was very successful in the call.
He was.
There's,
And
I went
did
down there the
manage
other,
To oil a bunch of
Yeah.
nests eventually.
and what was really nice too is when I did a training over the weekend, I went down there, barely anything. Staff went over and picked up stuff. Now, we have ducks. So there's no geese, but there's now probably like 20 ducks.
Because the playground's like.
So,
submerged underwater,
and
all the
I mean,
ducks
welcome
are-
to the country. That's going to happen. But,
So the camp kids are running.
So-
but I think
So,
the curtain would also help the playground.
Well, that
as
would help.
well, because it would absorb that water and still bring it, because of how we talked about it before.
Just,
It's
the
still.
creek is now flowing through, it like makes a stop at the playground area.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
like,
Eddie there. and then
that
it
creek-
well, because there is
continues
that
along.
one culvert that's supposed to be some form of drainage on that, like, kind of,
On
it's
the
an
drainage ditch, yeah.
it's an old
The drainage
road where
ditch.
people
Yeah,
brought their things. And when we talked about the health department too, I don't know if Ron ended up getting back to us on having our own engineer, either doing the samples or looking over that. But I'm totally cool with discussing that, because there were a couple other things I want to hit in terms of just things that we have in our power, that then once we do that, then it's kind of like, we've done everything you've told us to do. What's next? And then we can kind of plan those long-term solutions. So based off of the health department's recommendations, if they're saying this is the bar we want to go over, these were just some thoughts I had. So we would hire staff in March, do one training per month in April and May, and then do a cleanup day each weekend throughout June. And then, like always, open graduation weekend. And that way there we have people down there able to do that stuff. Now, this schedule could also be flexible and adapted based on, like, if there's 500 geese and we can't have our people down there disturbing them in order to successfully catch them, then we can modify that schedule. But I think having the personnel kind of decisions made earlier will then help us schedule the cleanups and things like that. So even if, and this year was atypical, but so that way there we don't have to play catch up trying to get open. As I'm sure you're aware, people have reached out to me about when the beach opens, stuff like that. We talked about how we're going to try and be more forward facing, putting out announcements on Facebook when we either have work going on or stuff like that. Some feedback that I've gotten from staff as well as other people in the community is staff training and oversight. So when we went there for the meeting with the health department, and there's literally underwear by there, and our staff is literally there working, like there's something missing there. And so some notes I jotted down after we went through there and so I did a training with them over the weekend, but staff need to be fully aware of the rules and expectations. And these are all things that we can talk about in terms of ideas and brainstorming. we should have a minimum of one 18-year-old present at all times. We have some, 16-year-old staffers that are like the oldest person there present. And that makes me a little nervous, as well as some people who express that, because I wasn't initially aware of that. And then key storage, I'm not going to go into the details on the key storage, but it's pretty unsecure the way we are doing that. And then after that note was time clock, as well as communication between Jen and myself. I'm working on improving that. And then also things that I think it would be better for the board to decide rather than Jen and myself is big contracted expenses. So like we just talked about, weeds, even sand. I mean, is it possible that we have the highway department pick up our order of sand and truck it, because then it makes it cheaper and it can be possibly purchased in bulk depending on what projects we have going on. I believe that's how it used to be way back in the day. I don't know what's kind of different and stuff now, but if we can look at like, hey, when we're doing a purchase order through the highway department, I mean, they know all the suppliers way better than Jen or myself would do. And I mean, it would be nice if, they can drive their truck down there, it gets loaded up and they bring it down. And if we need more, they have the ability to communicate and say, hey, we actually need another load. Is that possible? You go up to the yard with our truck, you pick it up and take it. Because when I did highway construction, that's kind of what it was. It's like, oh, we need another load for the chipper to be able to reach this last quarter mile, like send the truck down. So if there's a way we can do that, that also helps with the cleanliness issue, because then most of your sand you're getting is fresh, and then that kind of dissipates, any type of contaminants you have in there. And then also there's an issue with the time clock. In the past, we've been able to have staff register and like do that. That was something that isn't being used, and I guess there's an issue with it being programmed.
Well, no, Prana was down there and got it fixed when I was down there one day.
Yeah, we had that wait for
It's-
optimum.
Tomorrow, everybody's getting clocked in.
Okay. Then there was also the web cameras. I was talking to, I forget who I was talking to. I believe it was Steve. We were talking about it, but I think there's an issue with being able to access the feeds to that. So we do have the camera feed, but I think there's some sort of network issue in terms of our police department being able to have access.
That sounds strange to me, because
It's only in there. It's not like broadcast. It's all closed circuit and it's in the building. It's not like.
So
they can log
I get,
on.
I don't know. I just remember a couple weeks ago, it was
Yeah,
mentioned
they have
that
to
they're having
physically
trouble
go
with it
in
or
there.
something.
They would have to
Okay.
physically go in there and watch.
So
the tape.
that, but that, like I said, I'm just, I was told that,
Okay, yeah.
I don't know what the issue is, but I think it's definitely something I want us to look at,
Yeah.
because,
I was just in there last week.
and that's one of the things too, we might have to, executive session for the key storage issue, but I have been down to our concession stand, and it seems that somebody attempted to break in sometime this week, and there was significant damage to the external portion of the lock. Lock is still functional, but like that made me, it popped in my mind, like the cameras, like maybe long-term we want to look at a way of even getting a camera function in the concession stand building, because I mean, that's where we house all of our, like that's our storage facility. And I think our beach house is really well protected because you have that eye in the sky cameras watching it. And if there's a way we can improve security there, I'd like to do it, because I don't know if it's people just being knuckleheads trying to break stuff. I've picked up numerous broken bottles, stuff like that. Kids sometimes take rocks and scratch, maybe not kids, maybe it's just adults, who knows, take rocks and carve not nice things into the paint, the building, the chalkboard. So I think just having that might be a good deterrent.
It's so disappointing.
Yeah. I mean, and it's the same thing too, where people driving on the grass to do donuts in their so those are things where if people know we're more aware of it and that it is an issue, like hopefully getting the word out is enough for people to be like, dude, like stop, like this is your stuff.
Yeah.
Like you get to use this stuff, like let's not break it and ruin it. So in terms of security stuff, because like I said earlier this week, it looked like someone took a rock to the external lock. So I just want to make sure that we mention that. There was also garbage. That was an issue you and Michaela handled. People have been just using our dumpster. Usually we lock the dumpster. I didn't want to throw one of our own locks on there because then when the trash people come, they can't open it.
Yeah,
So
usually
I
they
think
deliver one with a
Welsh
lock.
delivers one with a lock, and so if we can sort that one out, because that's also just this week kind of thing that popped up.
So ask Welsh for a locking.
A locking dumpster, so that way they have a key and we have a key, and if we have to put the lock on ourselves, I have some surplus locks that I purchased for storage for our equipment, so we can put one on there and get them a key, so whatever the situation is there. So that kind of stuff, the oversight, staff training, that kind of thing, those are some things that I had. I was fortunate when I ran the beach a few years ago to have a lot of returning staff, like that were in their low 20s, still in college, stuff like that. These past few years have been completely different because number one, nobody's was allowed out working, doing that stuff. So it is pretty difficult. And we've always struggled to get lifeguards. Like when I wrote to you guys before we did the reorg, last year even, one of the ideas I had to incentivize people is to train our own people to be lifeguard certified. And that's something I also want to talk about with you guys as well is we've got a lot of young rec assistants. And so I'm thinking at the end of this year, we can possibly, if they want to, if they worked a lot of hours and showed they're a dedicated employee, that we do our lifeguard certification at the end of the beach season.
I love that idea.
Because if you do that, then the certification carries to the end of next season and the end of the following season. This year we certified at the start because we just had to. There hasn't because when we did our first cert for it and we paid for it.
But they're gonna work for us next year, right?
Well,
They're not
that's-
gonna get certified through us and then all of a sudden say, I'm gonna
but
go work.
so-
Person came back last
So
year.
so
Yeah.
this is
Yeah, so if only one person came back the last time, I don't know how,
You
like,
can't, how are you gonna obligate people to come back?
so
we
this
didn't
was
have to
my
pass.
this was
Well,
my
that's-
thing.
I would say.
Because that was the same question in the past before as well, was, well, what if they do this? Well, if we don't do it, then we're always in this same situation. And so my thought is if you have a rec assistant who's worked here 2-3 years and then, they're making this, and it's like, well, if we pay for your training, and as you guys will see when you sign the bills, the cost to become a lifeguard, the course is anywhere from $200 to $400. So essentially you pay for that certification out of pocket. Working at our beach, you're going to have to work 2 weeks full time if our beach doesn't close in order to break even. So why would I work here? You know what I mean?
What
Like
if we
when
pay
we,
for half, and if they agree to work for us that next season,
That's what
we
do.
reimburse them. Okay, and
So
then
you'll
reimburse
see in the
them
bill,
instead of paying for all of it, and if they have
There's
an
one of those
interest,
certifications.
they know it's gonna be there, but I don't see,
yeah.
if we're
And
only
I mean,
gonna retain one person. that
I
doesn't make
disagree and
sense.
think we should go for it. But like I said, that's going to be your guys' decision to talk about and discuss.
Just look at the other towns right now. I mean,
Yeah.
most of them haven't been able to open their.
No,
You
they
know,
don't have anyone.
They don't have
One,
staff.
one of the towns was what, they opened 3 out of 5 or 2 out of 5?
Well, I also think we're way more proactive in what we do. So, I mean, that kind of gives us an advantage, but for a while, like we weren't. And I remember, I'm not going to mention the person's name because it's nothing against them, but we had a kid who was going to be scheduled to be head lifeguard, college swimmer, was going to do the WSI, and, got offered a job, $20 an hour at Silo Ridge. So
Right.
like,
Why come here?
we
Exactly.
can't really compete in terms of price. And so my idea in terms of not necessarily increasing the wages is this is the perk of working at the Pine Plains Beach. And if our beach closes too, I mean, it's tough to work with other towns and try and get their schedule and stuff. But if we're certifying people and then a kid is working at our beach because, hey, we paid for their certification, and we'll only do it at the end of the season if you worked a certain amount of hours. Like I kind of want to implement that type of program. Like I said, rec assistant works the whole year, then we'll pay for it. If we do it at the start of the season, we have the issue where they kind of leave. But if you work the whole season, the reimbursement for you is getting trained And then we know you're good to go for next year and we can put you on the roster, and whether you show up or not, the paperwork's already done anyway. And if you don't, we remove you from the payroll and move on. And I think doing that incentivizes people other than raising it to $20 an hour for everything. And we can talk about different incentives because, you know, if you want to look even further down the road, you know, if we continue to have these issues with weeds as the lake goes through its natural cycle of, you know, over time lakes fill in and grow and whatever, we're going to be dealing with these water issues. And it's like, well, do we look at, you know, 5-10 years from now doing a pool, and then the only people you need on staff are 3 lifeguards that you pay well instead of having a roster of 5. And because the pool is fenced in, one while they're in recovery does the check-in of passes.
You still
One's
have the
on
same number of
standby,
lifeguards for a pool
and one-
because you have to have 2 lifeguards.
Well, no, but I'm saying is you'd have those 3 lifeguards who could manage everything that our rec assistants do, because you just have the pool that they're worried about, and then our park is just general use. Like, use at your own, and if you need something, the lifeguard can grab it from the shed for you, whoever's on staff checking passes. And then that, you know, I mean, long-term, a pool costs what it costs, but long-term, then you're not in the issue of, we have 6-7 staff people, even in a low day, 4 staff people, who no matter what, because minimum wage is going to be $15 an hour, you're paying $15 an hour for a job that 3 years ago really made $8.25. And so the budget's just going to have to keep going up, or we keep that same baseline foundation of you're hiring lifeguards, or you're willing to train people up to be lifeguards. So all your employees are lifeguards, and it's easy to run.
I
Yeah.
like having rec assistants there, like, cause Sarah will go over and start playing with one, you know, like. they
Oh, no,
entertain
I don't-
kids too,
oh,
so,
I
mean,
think-
don't
I think we
they
should have
go
them.
Minimalist with having something down there, cause I think, you know, kids need summer jobs and.
Oh, I don't disagree with that at all, but I'm just saying, like, in terms of like dollars and cents long term, and the numbers we get is fewer and fewer, is, you know, if you want to make it long term sustainable, you know, that's just an idea I had. And like I
I
said,
mean, if we're paying for all these kids to get lifeguard certified and not coming back, that's just us throwing away $400 every year for them to get a job every other time, where if we, you know, pay for half. So dollars and cents of sometimes, like, we need those kids to like their job to stay here. You can start them at earlier.
but that would also be the carrot incentive, because part of the issue with staff morale too is, like I said, I had to do a training because some of them weren't aware. We had a lifeguard, or we had a staff member rent out a kayak to, you know, kids that were old enough, because on our voucher, 12 years old. And, you know, I got down there because I'm doing random check-ins now, and, you know, 2 12-year-olds on a kayak without a life jacket because their staff doesn't know to give them life jackets.
I had 2 trainings before the beach was open,
Yeah.
so I would appreciate to not hear the words that there was no training. I had 2 trainings. I've gone over this stuff, and I'm excited that you had a training with them on Saturday, because I'm excited that you're coming back to do check-ins to see how they take your training. But I had 2 trainings, and I went over all this stuff both times.
But, and that's the thing, is the way I look at it though is, and that's why I went down there to do the extra training, because it didn't get through to them. And so it's either we're not setting them up for success, or they're incompetent, and then you don't hire them. So those were just the 2 things there. And like I said, that's why I want to talk about all this stuff, and so we can make it work. The other thing is too, is like I said, having a minimum of an 18-year-old down there, then have those people scheduled. So one person takes the key home with them and then is working that next day. So in terms of scheduling, to make it easier, that way there you have a key holder who always has it. Because like I said, the key storage is pretty unsecured, and we can talk about that in an executive session, because I don't want, until we change it, I don't want that to be there. And then part of the whole beach plan too is it's difficult being a waterfront director. And on our website, we have the typical work activities. And then I also brought up a few years back, you know, my recommendation is, I thought lifeguard, WSI, all that it'd be a $5,000 position, and you have all that, because even on our website, the waterfront director patrols bathing area during operating hours, patrol open water in a rowboat to prevent drowning accidents. Our rowboat does work too. Some of the staff were scared and didn't know how to operate it, but it does work. We put them out there on it.
That's master's level.
Enforces waterfront regulations, supervises the lifeguards at the park, trains lifeguards in proper life-saving CPR first aid techniques. You know, and this is all the stuff there. And this was off our website because looking at all the different things we have going on, I wanted to see if there's a way we can update this and just kind of figure out what do we want our beach to look like? Because a head lifeguard can do most of these responsibilities, but how do we want to go about hiring the head lifeguard and deciding that and making sure they're up to standard and stuff? And so I think this meeting would be perfect for us to be able to, you know, the history is what it is, and how can we take the situations we've been dealing with the past few years and just make it work and build a plan forward, amend this, and, you know, kind of the same thing we did with recreation in general at the start of the year, just kind of now focus in on the beach so it operates and works for everybody. So those are just some of the notes I had regarding that. And then there's some other things that are general rec, but I think the beach stuff and sand and long-term contracts and our overall plan, I think would be a great thing for us to talk about for the workshop. So I don't know if we want to do it where it's like we say, like right now, let's go through March, what needs to happen at the beach. And then you guys as a board decide and like we figure that out. And then we say, yes, that's how we'll do it. And then we go into April, what needs to happen, May, what needs to happen, June, what needs to happen, graduation weekend, triathlon, when the beach closes. And then we'll just make that decision together. And now there we know we're all on the same page. Do we want to do that, or
Just put a whole lot of stuff out all at once.
here's the thing. There's a ton of stuff, and I'm probably OCD over it because at the end of the day, you guys deal with a ton of stuff in terms of town management. But I think our beach and facility and the recreation opportunities we have here are something that if we take really good care of it, it's a magnet. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
you know, I mean, if we have a good waterfront,
Yep.
you know, people are going to come to swim. The triathlon, you know, I reached out to our county executive to talk about a playground. We invest in a playground. That's going to bring people into a safe playground. Oh, my kid can play on a playground. And then it's a very walkable 5K route. The playground that our recreation committee was talking about and that we've applied for grants for is an adapted playground. I reached out to our county executive, and I'm going to work on being part of the Think Differently stuff so we can do adapted recreation, get people who are involved in the Special Olympics down. Maybe we do a Special Olympics 5K. So just have, like, we are unique in that we have this stuff here. You know, not many towns have a mountain that people can just go and hike up or have such open, nice facilities. And if we just do one or two things here, it's going to run itself forever. And so I think for a long time, we just haven't all had, like, there are documents like this from, I guess, 99. It's when it was last updated, and it's on our website right now. So, like, news to me, you know? So those are things that, like, it's all been kind of word of mouth, and I'd just like to codify what we want to do and have a plan. Maybe have the health department reach out to the town hall, as well as, you know, not just Jen or myself, because then, you know, we're playing telephone with each other, you know, depending on who misses an email, you're a little bit behind the ball. So I think if we have a protocol and procedure set up, that's what I'd like to do. And it's probably going to be tedious. And I've probably spent way more mental energy than I probably should, but I really care and want to make sure that we run it.
To me, the thing that we don't seem to have, the very first thing is that we don't really have the optimum care issues settled in terms of how to take care of that lake and what really needs to be done. And I think that we need to get somebody to tell us what that is.
And I don't disagree with that at all. like the conservation committees, the people, the stakeholders who live and operate and use that lake, like it needs to be worked on. That is,
Michael brought up a big notion of the swimming pool though, which is something obviously the town's talked about for a long time, but if we were to shift away from the lake itself, from being our primary swimming place,
because then you could leave that open to use at your own risk.
the beach,
I mean,
right?
it's
Yeah.
pretty
Yes.
hard for
We
a
would still want to
goose.
maintain it and it to
Yeah,
survive.
oh yeah, absolutely. You still are going to want that as a
It'd be our
park.
camp
I mean,
thing, so it would be the pool getting tested, not the lake.
yeah. And that's the thing too, is like, I mean, it is great waterfront. Like, even if it doesn't pass, sometimes I swim the lake anyway, you know, it's a lake.
It's busy down
You
there.
know,
when you close.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is like, it's almost hard because people don't show up until we close. You know what I mean? Because like they just, they work. And,
Well, yeah.
and the thing is like, well, if I show up to the beach during the day, the lifeguard is going to tell me the water isn't safe and I can't go deeper than my knees.
Yeah.
So I'll just wait till the lifeguard leaves. You know that, and that's literally what happens. It could be monsooning and it's a smart decision to close the beach.
Yeah.
And our staff leaves because why are we going to be open? No one's showing up. It's downpouring. And if there's 20 minutes of sunshine, there's 10 people down there, you know, because
Right, and
we're
then
not
you wanna
there.
Close the beach because you pay
Yeah.
the staff to stay there
Yeah.
all day raining and then.
Well, the
make
beach
decisions
space
when you-
is-
And the weather changes.
It's
Is this
awesome.
children down there or? anyone?
Children, literally
So there's
everybody.
some people who maybe don't want to participate in.
And that's
in
the other thing too.
town's version of what you can do. on
That's the other
beach.
thing too, is like swimming is necessary to offer and it's necessary for us to have lifeguards for the camp. But I guarantee if you went back 30, 40 years, right? I bet there was a parent that didn't feel comfortable being the only person supervising their kid. So, hey, we should have a lifeguard at the waterfront. You know what I mean? And then it's obviously built up into its own thing where we offer lifeguards, we have the swimming, codes have changed and that kind of stuff. But
It would be
guarantee
nice
when we first acquired it, it was swim at your own risk.
to have a more controlled space
Yeah.
that the younger children could be well.
And then you
supervised
also have
in.
the thing where people come down to use the playground. And then it's like, do I check in? Do I pay the day pass? I'm not using the water. You know? And so those are some confusion that, you know, depending on, you know, is the water good? Is the water, like, all that stuff changes. And it's hard for when you have, you know, 15, 16-year-old staff to tell someone who maybe drove a half hour, like, the water's closing, you have to pay $3 to use the flooded playground.
So none of that matters, swimming in the beach too, or long-term, if the physical engineering of the landscape there doesn't change somewhat, right? It's kind of like the whole.
Well,
it's like a
well,
spongy swamp you
that's
walk
the
out
other
to.
thing too, is like the curtain drain is definitely going to help. But eventually that water, and like as plumbers say, it rolls downhill. Like it's going to end up in the water eventually, and hopefully it dissipates and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
But you'd have to build it up in order
If you
to
could just
create
come
the-
up
the- or your
6
height.
inches
No, I
though.
got you.
Yeah,
But then you have to,
you don't even have to do the whole area.
yeah, but
like-
you're low behind it.
But as long as we're going pitching it towards the lake though, it's catching it and it's not going
Or
directly
pitching
in.
it towards the drainage ditch as well.
but ultimately
You're high
it'll
behind
still
it, but
flood.
then done, all the
Over
water
time.
though, still
But the
somehow
drainage
gets
for
over
Sisson
that
Lake is what it
anyway
is.
and
There's
gets
a
into the lake.
maximum
So we're
height
just trying to catch
typically
it
for where the
there
water will go.
and divert it to a
And-
different spot.
And these are all like engineer questions, like
Well,
asking the wrong
I'm
guy.
amazed to hear that
But-
we're allowed to just bring in truckloads of sand, which is great. You know, it's just some sand, right? But
Well,
are we allowed to do that?
I
Because
think
if
the
we're
more
I don't think
questions.
they're gonna stop you.
Yeah.
But
But
if
you
we're allowed
cannot
to do that,
fill.
so what constitutes fill?
Well,
What's the
that's
difference between sand and
That's
fill?
the shady area.
So what if we were only putting down a thin bit every year, just a thin bit, shaking it out of our bootlegs?
I mean, it's
like in
already
the
like-
So
Shawshank
it's like
those are like
You're
the
5 feet above the water when you're like 8 feet, you know, like you walk down, so obviously there has been a thin bit of layers added
And
over the years.
It seems like if we were
Because
to
I
ask
remember when
the
it
DEC,
was
they would
not
be
that
okay with it,
drastic
right?
of a
Is it
drop,
Well, it
right? Wasn't
depends,
it like
because what's your
cat-
goal?
like
Do you want it to
gradual
be-
at one point?
Right.
Yeah, so,
It
well,
was
it depends
gradual.
on your
Now it's
goal
like
though.
a-
Do you want it
a
as
hill.
a recreation area, or do you want it as a swimming area, or do you want it as a fishing thing? You know,
Like
like,
recreation and
but like right
Swimming.
now, the peg we're trying to get is a swimming area.
Right.
And we're at the mercy of the ecosystem.
Right.
You know, like,
Climate change.
But
yeah, like you
everything
can't,
that's been mentioned has been tried.
yeah.
And people have abandoned that. The divers have been tried, mats have been tried, aeration, go down to Millbrook, they've got their aeration going. I mean,
Yeah.
all these things have been.
And that's the thing too,
And
like
somebody's
look-
tried them, so you can ask.
Yeah.
And there's an awful lot of experts out there who are willing to take your money and
That might be
and
well
echo what
spent
you
on a
want to
swimming
say.
pool, perhaps.
The
20,
Millbrook-
that's the thing. That's going to be the end solution. How much I don't like it.
And then
It's
there's no
gonna
more
be-
sampling at the lake, but you can
But you could still use
as
it.
a
I mean, like
resource.
right now, you
Right.
have, I guarantee you go down there right now, there are bass fishermen. They're not allowed to fish in our fishing or swim area. But if this is the roped off swim area, they are here. I mean, it's a great lake. And I mean, honestly, if it was open for general use, I mean,
Right.
I'd probably still swim in it here and there.
But that's
But
going to
like,
fill in very
and
quickly. if
the
we
thing
don't
is
use it.
too, is like,
Yeah.
the only one thing that we might have to test it for would be an event like the triathlon. You know, so maybe there is some prep work at the start where it's like, hey, like, let's get the weeds out of there, pick up the goose poop, and then before the triathlon, test the water. If it meets a certain standard, then they're good to do the swim. Otherwise, they just change it to a bike run. But
I would
So-
never want to abandon the beach. Like, I would want the beach to be prepped and the.
Oh, yeah.
dock
No,
every,
that's-
You know,
well-
like, at least. could we
well, I
do a
mean, the
without
dock out-
ropes?
that might be, and I'm not a lawyer, so honestly, you'll have to just talk to a lawyer on that one.
They're going to shut you down.
Yeah,
Essentially,
because
you
they'd
have
be
to
like, why does the
provide help.
town own the
You know,
dock?
it's the town.
Because we could still do kayak rentals, and there were other stuff too that, as we go through the plan, somebody brought it up to me, and I had the idea, and until they brought it up, I didn't even think of it. Was getting a permanent kayak rack down there. I'm going to shop around for some, so that way there are people who own a kayak but want to keep it down there.
Nice thing to do.
They can just one time drive it down, keep it there. But storage is kind of a premium down there, and trying to figure out how we want to do it is another thing, but that's very small on the list, but just
We
popped in
didn't,
my mind.
didn't we have one?
We have a rack for ours.
For hours.
Just for
And
ours,
and
no?
what we did differently this year is we actually, there's the adjacent shed. That's where we keep the kayaks now. So then there's room for our other equipment storage, like ice rink, other equipment that we hope to use and set up. So storage is a nightmare situation. I've probably got like a 20 by 20 foot space in my basement waiting to be freed from the rec equipment that has to, you know, be used for our programs, because there's just not the space down there to keep it secure. And then as the day I think about moving it down there, someone, you know, busts a lock. So it's one of those things where even that's something that, you know, down the road, talk about storage and stuff for rec. But
What if
in
we put
terms
up
of
some
beach,
fake cameras on the exterior?
But not only that story.
you're going to want to decide that in the executive
All
session.
the stuff, but all the stuff in your concession stand
We won't be doing
has to be
that.
wet. All this rain, all the stuff in the concession stand.
Those kids are
What's up?
definitely
All
watching
that
that
has to
too.
all be wet, because that door leaks, both those doors. when we get 'em in rain.
It's actually the concession stand itself stays relatively dry. The garage part, maybe not so much, but there really isn't anything that's negatively impacted by the moisture there. And when we have the concession stand running, because one of our rec committee members, Steph Rhodes, also runs the FFA, got volunteers down there, and they ran the concession stands nonstop. So that spot's clean and stuff's working pretty well there. I think our overall cost for concession stand items around, you know, $600-700, and we brought in $1,200. So like, you know, people like hot dogs at games. So we're going to try and keep that stuff
They're open
going.
for camp.
And yes, they're going to be open for camp. So
Should be the news.
I bet they
yeah,
do tacos,
she reached
too.
out. They're going to do a carnival night thing for that. So the
Okay.
campers can go and get the popcorn and hot dogs by our concession stand, which is going to be run once again by those high school volunteers. So there's a lot of stuff like we're all working on. And so, but I
Well,
think
high
right
school
now the
volunteers,
beach is the
though,
big thing.
I have by the, with the early staff hiring, instead of hiring early staff, can't we
So
get
it's not
seniors to
true.
do their community service?
Until we get.
That count as, like.
So-
those
so I don't-
early months,
I
you know what I'm saying? Like, to get it?
I like
Well,
that.
they're still in school.
I like that, and I'm not opposed to it, but the coordination can be really tough.
But I mean,
Because-
it's
because
at the end
during-
of the school year though, man, like
It's
if they need it,
probably
like I
why
think it
it's
could
But-
be actually used.
Well,
like,
we don't have.
it could be, but
we
a
have
thought
them
I
in
also
there
had
all the
was,
time.
is
So
if we
they
hire
see
them in
Yeah,
March,
but
or
we're
somebody
just-
sees
right?
it,
Or we hire them
you get
sooner,
John Adams or
keep them
somebody
on the
who doesn't know
roll
anybody
as an
on the lake,
employee,
I should be careful
like a
about
part-time
something.
employee, and I don't know how it all works in terms of what you have to do, but if you make them a part-time employee,
It's a significant
and then
fine.
like ice rink time,
What's that?
call up one of our rec
Thousands.
employees to come and Zamboni the ice. Or in the fall, when it's flag football, have a rec assistant come down and be an official rather than us paying $90 for an umpire. We're paying our rec assistant fee because they're helping with rec programs outside of just the beach. So that's another thing, because then it's like, some of our current employees also volunteered and helped at your ice rink, at our ice rink. And so like, if you hire them in March and then terminate their employment the following March, or rehire them that following March, then you have a consistent group of kids who, hey, on the weekend, I don't have much going on, like,
just
I'm gonna
looking
work
for
for free.
services though, to do that.
it
instead of
is,
paying somebody.
but also, as I'm sure, like, you're aware, volunteers are hard to come by. I mean, like, same thing, like
So our staff-
fire service, everything like that, like, people showing up and doing stuff for free in today's busy world is harder and harder. It's not impossible. Like I said, our volunteers did an excellent job running the concession stand. Like those people are out there. And there's no 100% answer, but I think we're heading in the right direction in terms of getting those people out to help. I mean, Rich Tamburino being in charge of our baseball, softball. I mean, I'm sure you guys drove by and saw how many people were down there helping. The men's league softball that used to, when I first started, be kind of a headache.
Right.
They went down there and they redid that whole field. Now it's grown in because there haven't been as many games and stuff, but people showed up. And so I think it's heading in the right direction, but the thing that's taken a lot of my mental energy is beach right
Michael,
now.
I have a thought. I'm feeling a little overwhelmed by all your ideas,
Yes.
and I love them.
Talked about with the group.
What if you made the
Right way to begin.
recommendations? If you could write us a document that does what you were talking about. March, we do this, April, we do this.
Well,
May-
can we go through some of those right now, kind of quick, and just like what we think is a good idea? Because I don't want to do a recommendation that based on your experience or my experience or someone else's doesn't
Why don't
make
you
sense
two
or
just
isn't
work out together?
practical.
Because we're going to almost an hour, and if we're gonna go through 4 months, we're gonna be here. for
Well,
3
I
hours.
think it can just be
Yeah.
okay.
All right, like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
trust that you can put it together in a
Yeah.
We
document.
can always
instead-
take it then.
And then go from there.
And then we
Okay,
can have
cool,
another
cool,
one,
cool.
at least we know,
Yeah.
we don't need to start.
Yeah. I was hoping to do this a while back, but I know you guys have been busy, so.
Yeah.
So
I think,
it just,
as far as, I think obviously with my couple years' experience, you had 1 year on the beach. I think we can go through and make that list easy. I think that it's really important to remember that there are rules and protocols put in place, and sometimes that doesn't get followed. And I think that it's important to remember that. So, if we're talking about whether or not the way to obtain sand, that's a really important conversation to have, not just with Michael and I. That's
Yeah.
like an important conversation.
because
to have
anything
with-
over
with the
500,
board
you
and
guys
with-
have to
But
sign
that's where
off
Heather,
on.
I mean,
So-
that's essentially, you're
Heather.
having that conversation with
Right.
Heather, because.
But
We
and then
don't know
also
anything
weed
about
removal as
required
well.
state.
Like if
And
I
then you're
say
talking
weed removal
about-
happens now, you guys would actually have to approve that, and we need to
So-
source it from different people. And
Right, and
That's-
so
so
when
that's
you're
accurate.
talking about.
I think, at least I would be very happy to have our highway department do that. Can we make that happen? I don't
Yeah,
know
that's
if
something you
we can or
just have to
not.
talk
So
to
I
her.
guess-
The cost of the sand will,
But-
and
but-
the time will have to be billed back to your department.
yeah, which is fine, but
That-
it
that's
saves the
like-
taxpayer
Those
money
are
if our
obviously
truck goes and picks it up.
conversations
Yeah, yeah.
above, like, just
Yeah.
Michael and I. And then you talk about if you want to get right down to like the meat and potatoes of the whole weed thing. I did approach Michael and he told me to have the kids pull it out, and it was not I didn't have weeks. I had that weekend. The health department said, you can't put anybody in this water. Michael wanted the kids to do it. You see our staff down there. There's no way those kids are getting in there and doing it. It's not safe. The amount of weeds that there were. And so it was like a quick thing. Like these people are booked weeks and weeks out. a global pandemic. So I think that there are protocol, but I think you also have to remember that protocol is going to be broken sometimes. And that was not
And-
just a run off on my own and make the decision.
And
Dara is involved.
that's the thing that I want to avoid. And if we
But
can,
you can't avoid that.
Well-
You have to remember to be flexible. There's protocol and sometimes protocol.
well, that's what I wanted to do with the plan, because, you know, anything that goes over, and when we did the reorg meeting, like the board said, like, I ultimately need to sign off on stuff, but there are some decisions that Jen needs to make
Right.
where, you know, in
A
doing
director of
that.
a program's just gonna have to do something
Yeah.
sometimes.
And so, and this year,
That's
That's
getting
what
the
life
weed
is.
harvester in. How much did that cost you?
He has not given a quote yet. He has
But
not given a price yet.
it's 200 and some odd dollars an hour.
An hour.
Yes,
Yeah, and
right.
he's giving us a deal. He
And
was
what,
here for-
and how long was he there?
He was there for, I think, 3.5 or.
And a
4 months.
mobilization fee, you know.
He said
We
he's
spent a
waiving that
lot of
for-
money. Now, I don't have a problem with spending money. Where are you going to get it out of your budget?
I have it in the, there's a line, CE line.
Okay, but we also have, when we hire a company like that, they have to provide us with insurance. And they also have to sign basically some sort of a letter of agreement when it gets that with our purchase, whatever,
Yeah,
procurement policy.
It's a procurement policy.
And we have to abide by that. It's not one of these things that when we're going to get an audit one of these days, and boy, are we going to get burned. Because we cannot be doing this stuff.
and like, that's why I want to work on this stuff, because then the person doing the weed removal isn't a mere Jen decision.
Hmm.
It's already like codified. Hey, this is what we do right now. March, Town of Pine
Right.
Plains is putting out a bid for weed
Well,
removal.
it might
Which
even
is
be on the
where-
state bid.
Yeah,
Right, which
right.
is where I was going before when I said, if you're talking about taking care of the water, there
Yeah.
has to be a plan in place. It can't just be like our water keeps failing year after year after year.
Yeah.
And we're trying to think of what to do every
always
year.
Right.
Last minute, we're always pedaling backwards and it happens every
Every
year. I've
year.
been down there for 15 years with the camp. I see it. It's every year.
and
There's
that's the
nothing-
thing too, is like, this is the first time weeds have ever been told to
Well,
us
that's
as an
it.
issue.
The health department is a
Yeah.
moving target on this also.
And so that's where, like, if we, and like, I think is, if we control literally everything that they tell us to do, we do this, we do their recommendations, and then we know, like, this is it. And I was approaching it, looking at like swimming area only. As a resident of here, though, there is more stuff you have to consider. Because I'm looking at the swimming area only, it's like, let's treat it, but we don't own the whole lake. It's part of a nature preserve. Like, there are things above the rec director decisions that need to be made. And I just wanted to pull that in because,
An
you know, there
alternative
is
to
no procedure right
To
now.
the
It's-
aeration could be just some pumps that move some of that colder, deeper water towards shore too. That's
Yeah.
just
We
so
talked about
basic.
fountains
It's
and
Well,
so
that's what
basic.
Ken said. Ken said with it being so shallow for so long, we don't get any of the deep
And,
water flow.
and-
like
and the
how
big thing
lake
is, though-
or it flows like this, right?
and the big thing is, though, is
Yeah.
my budget is $500
That's right.
before I go to you guys for approval. And I don't, unless
There's not too many things you can buy for
unless I
$500.
call, like, unless I take our pumper truck from the fire department and run it, like I can't make that happen. And so I just wanted to bring it to you guys, like, this is,
Yeah. They got some good pumps on them trucks.
There
out
are
there.
there are
Yeah,
some
actually, that-
underwater fans that
Yeah.
they have for this purpose.
Oh, really?
So
Yeah.
if we get an electric one though, because we have to get that inspected, that's what the, Board of Health,
Yeah.
like, so, and she was all into, solar one, but I feel if we have a solar one, it's not gonna get taken in and out, somebody will break it. She was very upset about the geese leaving too.
She likes the geese.
Well,
But
Well,
yeah,
they
she closed
did-
her beach all the time because of
See
goose
that?
poop, so I mean, I don't know what she wanted.
Well, you don't. That's
I
why
said
we're
that to her,
we
too.
are moving towards a pool no matter what. If we want to offer swimming, we are moving towards a pool.
And you know what,
I think
I
that's
think
true.
I'm okay with it, I was against it for a while,
No, I
because
was
the
too.
lake is our access, but you know what? If we need to provide swimming, which I feel we do, because it gets hot and some
Oh,
people
yeah.
just have nothing to do. And I mean, I think it opens up that to be more of a, you know, like people to go down with fishing poles right there in an open area and they wanted to cast offshore.
And
but people-
it would
And
be
swimming,
used because
hopefully.
And swimming.
also like we can still facilitate
Because we
kayak
could
kayak
take
rent
out the rest of
Department of
that
Health
fence,
there. You'd
that
have to
entire
no-
fence
no
there
swimming,
and
so.
clean it, like make
Yeah,
it
just
look
like the boat.
more
They have to
appropriate.
say
Like,
no
we can
swimming.
have
Yeah,
a bigger
yeah.
area.
and that's
You
the
know,
big
that
thing
And
because
the
like
police are not
Fence starts,
gonna,
I don't
they
get
understand
why.
that that's okay.
You know?
well, I mean it's kind of like the no pets thing. You know what I mean? Like there's no pets, but I've
Well, people
yet
don't
to see
clean up
someone
after their
arrested
pets.
for walking their dog. You know, so it's like those are different things that
Yeah.
you know it.
But I think
That's
Tara is right,
above me.
that if you can start us with something.
All right, cool.
'Cause I have-
I'll try to get it by Thursday, but there's a lot.
No.
Oh, well, we're not gonna approve it by Thursday.
Yeah, no, but I mean,
Yeah.
just for you guys to discuss or whatever. but-
You start on it and we'll have another workshop meeting, even if
Okay.
it's something
How
else.
many
we can-
points are there? Because you had so many different things on your.
So
list
it
earlier.
depends on how granular you want to get.
He wrote us an 8-page.
What's the Zoom and
last
the
time.
minors?
And I
It was very
am-
detailed and
I
very
am
good with
glad-
the flow chart at the end. I love the flow chart.
I'm
so.
glad though, because you guys helped me do some stuff, which is now already benefited. Like we got our concessions back again. We are sending kids to the other side of the state to play softball for our town. Like,
Phenomenal.
so like those things, like I said, I mean, I do go pretty granular, but
Wait, so do
Like-
you have the money to pay for that now, or are we fundraising and it's
We're
going through? a
private
business?
fundraise, it's
Private
going through a
fundraise.
business.
It's
going through a
a
business.
nonprofit?
yep. Because
Nonprofit.
I'll tell you
Okay.
later.
yeah and that's the thing though, is like that was another thing where Rich came to me and asked. I was like, listen, like ultimately, like we have banner money, it wouldn't be enough to cover a week, you know. So and that's where just putting the stuff out there, getting the community input is super huge. And like honestly, like I bet if you ask people like, hey, how many people like to cool off in the summer, you know, like they'll
Oh, I
the
think
majority
a
of
pool-
people will say yes.
I don't
like
think,
water.
a pool's not a hard sell. I think if people hear that
Yeah.
a pool would be a thing, it would maybe be 60-40 low end, but the 60 is still gonna be in favor. I think more than 60% would be okay.
Well, and the other thing you want to look at too is like, what does it cost us to operate our beach? You know, versus bonding out a pool over 30 years
I'm okay with.
or however long, you know what I mean? So, and I've brainstormed and like I've picked people's brains on ideas for where it could be or how we would go about it, but ultimately that'll be your guys' decision. So,
It couldn't be
So-
where the volleyball court is or something like that.
I mean,
Well,
that
that's
was
where
kind
I
of
would
my
like
thought.
for us-
I'm not really an engineer, but I mean, then you don't need to build a new bathhouse,
Yeah, makes sense.
you know?
That whole area on that right side, you know,
Like
we
where
could have
the- where the
we could
volleyball
have a
court is.
Good size.
And then also actually I want to mention playground as well, because we're applying for a grant for a playground. I'll resend the PDF. I don't know if you have it in your email, but I'll try and get the PDF of the playground we're looking for, the
Oh, I
pathways
have
one.
it, yeah.
Oh, you have it?
Yeah.
If we can get
They
that
all-
to,
all
okay,
board
they have
members
it.
should have it.
all right, so it's about 90 by 90 and we're looking at doing it, we have a map of it. I'll just draw a quick one. So this is the lake and I'll hold it up in a second. Beach area, bathhouse, parking lot, and then we have an open field here. So that's water, beach area, bathhouse, parking lot. We're looking to put it here. And it's a wide open field and a good spot.
Does it require digging?
So
Because it is the leach field.
is it, or is it a septic? And those
I
are
thought
some
we had a
questions
pump.
there
I thought
because,
that was
That's where we
pumps.
pumped it to.
and so if it can't
Oh,
go
okay,
there.
So it just pumps it uphill and there's a leach field. I thought it was pumped to a tank and then the tank
So,
was taken
okay,
out.
so-
I didn't know that.
No.
Okay,
But
so
that's,
if that location doesn't work, there are also alternate ones that I have scouted out.
but I mean, I have to ask Ray, you know.
Yeah,
are there any
absolutely.
Specific
And-
restrictions that have been placed on that.
And that's
Yeah.
what I'd love to know is like distance from the road. What's that got to be? You know, those
Mhm.
like
Ray,
any of
yeah,
that
just
stuff.
Talk to Ray and Drew.
Just as I guess the beach is allowed to bring in fresh sand to maintain the beach we have there, and I'm.
Yeah,
and
so-
I know you guys have talked about lengthening the beach too, like maybe scratching some of the sod back to bring to maintain the beach, right? Is
That,
you?
that was just me who,
Oh,
I think
okay.
we should do it so there's not a huge hill
Yeah,
going
no,
down.
I thought that
Like,
made
you
sense.
get, like, just
But
bringing
isn't
it
that
back.
previous sand?
It
Yeah,
is,
that's all it is.
That's
It's
why, so
just
it's, we should
bring it back.
reclaim
Yeah.
what our beach
Like
is.
all that, like just taking like a bucket.
And-
And also we could start maintaining our lawns there.
And to
Not
be
filling,
honest,
but just maintaining, which will require, you know, some.
and to
moving
be
and
honest
filling.
too, though, is like, you know, we do have like tractors and loaders and stuff that, you know, we, like our town has that.
That's the
Like,
highway
we can do
department.
that,
We
yeah.
need them to come down and do
Yeah.
that, though. That's not us. We can't make
Yeah.
them do anything. That's a conversation for Heather.
Who always says no?
At least to us. So you
Well-
probably have a better chance.
Well, I
Well,
mean,
actually,
I mean,
Just
the thing is,
building
the
grounds
thing
have
is
a
though,
tractor
is like, you know, she does have to do a lot of maintenance stuff and operate within the
I'll call
lines.
Heather and I will
But-
ask her.
But like,
See.
if there's something that we, like, that the town needs to do in order to make it easier for her to say yes, in terms of like,
If you have
you know, it
patients
costs
down
this
there,
much to
they'll
have
range
her employees down there, or whatever, those are,
that entire hillside going into, through the parking area, into the lawn. It's a
Alright.
pain.
I don't know what I'd be able to do. But, I mean, I'm always willing to work with everybody, and I try and ask super nice.
I know.
What I'll do is my plan for the long term, I'm gonna pretend that we don't even think there's a pool happening, and I'm just gonna look at, this is what we need to do for the beachfront. So that's what my
Exactly.
plan is. And then you guys can decide, do we like this? Is this sustainable long term? And then go from there.
We should walk around out there on our next get together. or
Field
something.
trip.
Field trip.
Yeah, I'm cool with that if we want to.
Did I miss out on other field trips?
There was a sewer field trip.
So I mean, that's pretty much just what I wanted to get out there, because these aren't huge issues, but they are in terms of like procedures, how we do this, how it all operates, and I want it out there so we can clarify it, and then it just makes everybody's life easier. So that's kind of what's up.
Jen, how many campers have you got?
150. We're maxed out already.
That is
Wow.
great.
I had my
30.
first pickup and
Like
drop off
a
today.
30%.
It was intense.
Wow.
That's fabulous.
Wow.
That's so great.
Sarah Rose came home so tired, just dragging.
She was
It
walking
was
through the parking lot like
great.
this.
It was great,
No,
glorious.
it's and that's the thing. I mean, like the fact that our town provides these
Oh, it's
things
terrific.
is awesome, and like it's
Yeah.
amazing. All right, so I will work on that, and I guess a lot of the things too. Then we kind of touched base was I just wasn't sure if you know, what I would have to do to either ask or find out about having the highway department help maintenance of fields rather than just our volunteers only. So like if there is like I can't really just have a volunteer show up with a bulldozer to like level something, you know? So those are
We've been
things that I'd like
identifying
to.
more and more things that we need.
Yeah, but
Robust building
we can
grounds
find-
thing to
What do you
do.
want bulldozers? Because I mean.
Well, I'm not
people are-
saying necessarily a bulldozer, but like if we have the room to,
We don't
you
have a
know,
bulldozer anyway, the town doesn't. Do we? No.
yeah, but like getting a roller and stuff like that, like I as the rec director shouldn't be operating the roller, even though I used to for highway construction, and if I need to, I can. But
We
but
do, but we don't
but
have
but
a-
like you're gonna want bigger equipment, kind of like we did for.
Yeah, we've
for
got-
that, yeah.
well, we have people that would come down and volunteer to do a roller or something like that for
All
a
right.
day. There was
Yeah.
just, someone was moving right before
Okay.
baseball. so we couldn't make it
Because
down before
in terms
baseball.
of the field, and actually that's also I'm sorry, because the beach is like I like to swim, so what I want to do is there's an intermediate field in the outfield of the softball. There's a backstop there. If we take that out and then turn the intermediate field that's in the outfield of the Little League field and put that in the corner between the basketball court and the Little League field, we have enough level ground to have a soccer pitch or football field down at our facility. So just by taking the existing fields and just rearranging some backstops to be able to do that. Now, I mean, I could probably get some volunteers, you know, depending on the schedule, but if I can get somebody with like heavy equipment to pull that up And then we work on over time, actually leveling it with something like a roller or, you know, whatever needs to be done. The same contractor who, you know, volunteered their time to help with the ice rink, like we can level that
That's
space
gonna
and
need a
make
lot
it
of
playable.
material.
Well, I don't know if it will necessarily need a lot of material because, you know, with
I
a
surveyed a
good,
lot of that to find the most flattest spot that we have down there, Mike.
Yeah.
It's gonna need a lot of material.
well, it depends because if you bulldoze the high spots into the low spots, I mean, you're talking, you know, 2 to 3 inch variation at different spots scattered out. And like I said, it's not an easy task, but that's one of the things I'd like to look at because we'll play soccer on an uneven field, but I'm just saying down the road, it'd be nice for it to be level. And so I just wasn't sure how you guys feel about, you know, possibly taking those up, and then if you had any recommendations on that,
I
because
think it's a great idea.
because if someone can't volunteer to do it, because that was the issue I had trying to do the dugouts. Maybe I was just super naive, but you know, it was tough to get volunteers and people who actually knew what they were doing and had the equipment
So
and,
you
and
just want
able to all
those
meet
two
at the same
backstops
time.
out.
I'd like them out, but then down the road, I'd like to, you know, put them up in a different spot. It's obviously not going to be the same fence and poles.
So
Like I don't want to get rid of the field completely, but I do want those 2 pieces of fence
out.
out. Like that's something I'd like to do. So then we have the room for an open field. And if you guys need more details, I can.
Well,
The
that's
soccer
just
field would have to be
timing,
mowed.
you know, you're using them now, right?
So our coach pitch season's over. The only field that's being used is the Little League softball, and now they're going over to Rochester. So, and then in September, the Little League boys field, a film crew, a film company is going to be doing that. I'm going to have to work on ordering some more baseball dirt because you would not believe, and I'll show you the pictures after, but there was like this much water on the girls field, and in a day they got rid of it. In a day they got rid of it. Like our volunteers and the coaches, Rich Tamburino, I believe, Chris Hurst, Brian Walsh, they dug trenches, and like it drained, and then the rain came and the field was able to absorb that rain, and they played and they won in the first inning. So it was really cool to see that. But other than that, the Little League field for that film, that's the only thing. So I'm gonna have to order some dirt to rebuild the mound because they had to borrow some dirt from that mound in order to offset that so they could then win their game.
But even
So-
losing those 2 fields,
Well, we
If
wouldn't
they-
lose
but if
them.
it
You
does-
just pivot them into the corners of your soccer field.
but I'm saying even not
Yeah.
putting them up, as long as all baseball wasn't done on the same night, you know, like if it was scattered throughout, you know. the
Yeah,
2
and we're
fields
working
could
on
be
that too,
sufficient, you know
because-
what I mean? Could be
because we
sufficient
had-
instead of having those.
We
other
had a
fields that
ton
are
more
just-
people too, and you saw that too. So
Yeah,
like
it's
me
so
and Rich
hard
have
to
already been
maintain.
talking.
Yeah.
Once softball's done, we're already setting up our plan for next year. We're going to push for Little League baseball as well and try and get that squared away. So, all right, that's kind of what's up. So I'll work on that, and we're all set.
That'd be great, Michael.
Cool.
Is there anything else?
All right, thank you.
All right.
They took a lot of material out of there. How does it look? Did they
And
take-
we were down there for the softball game,
for the,
and I know it's our recreation field, but Lizzie's not small, and Lizzie was almost waist high in grass, like in the other fields, like we were sitting in the outfield, so those fields, when he goes down, I would like him to
He's
see
only
be
mowing
mowed.
what's used because he's worried that it's frying. He was worried that it was frying. Now
I was
it's
gonna
been too
say,
wet.
it's been raining for
But
the
man,
last
it's been
week.
too wet to mow.
The other thing is,
Don't do that.
Oh, good.
Don't do that.
and that's another question I have because just in general is like, does it make it easier for him if we have that mowing equipment? Like,
He's got a beautiful mower. It's not a big one like.
Yeah.
the-
well, because when I worked horse maintenance and we did 900 acres, you start on Monday here and you get to the other side of the farm by there, but we also had like a heavy duty machine to get
Yeah,
the
the big
majority of the
machine.
fields. And
He
we
has a
just,
60
we just
That's
mowed
all
them.
you did.
To do
Yeah.
that area,
Okay.
he could go
But-
pretty fast and do that area.
But
has-
he also has a lot of other stuff too. So it's like, is that also something that the highway department could buzz once and then go from
They
there?
won't. They will not do it.
Like, how do we get them to say yes? Like that's,
That
yeah,
would-
if it's something I
That's
got,
another discussion.
Yeah.
at another
Okay.
time.
If,
All right.
if,
and I'm not fully aware of that stuff. So because
Right.
I'm just trying to look at stuff that like, what do we already have that can work and enhance it? And so like, that was my thought. Cause,
I know, yeah.
so, all right, cool.
it does feel like we're short grounds maintenance though, doesn't it? I
Well,
feel like we're always
it's
coming up
turning
short.
out more and more that way. We're gonna have to really revisit that whole,
How many hours total?
well, the whole department.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a
got
department of one.
Yeah,
really.
one and a helper
And,
sometimes.
yeah, and the helpers
Right.
can't operate anything.
And that's something too, in terms of like beach maintenance. You know, I can teach rec assistants how to use weed whackers and stuff if we, get the fuel and stuff, but it would be, it's
They're
also
showing up
kind
in
of scary to see
shorts
some of
and
them.
flip-flops
Yeah.
with no
Exact-
eye
but that's
protection, no
exact-
ear
that's exactly what I
protection.
mean.
don't
They
think that's-
can wear other stuff if they
Yeah.
know that's what they're doing, but
So it's
I
like,
think you
yeah.
really have to also look at the law, because
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
far as I know, you can't let
Well,
anybody younger than
exactly.
18-year-olds run that, and we don't have 18-year-olds.
Yeah.
The people that applied are 15 and 16.
Yeah.
So I hired every single person that applied.
Yeah.
You cannot get staff.
Does anybody from Wilcox come looking for a job?
Well, because Wilcox didn't open, but
Oh, so they didn't have.
yeah. And
So
so
I
like,
thought
and
they
so
would
there are
have
some
hired their
people
people.
like, if I was a lifeguard there, and I live kind of close and
Mhm.
like my cert, I don't need to get recertified and spend the $400. I'll wait till next year. I think that's what a lot of people did. Just, why am I going to spend the money that I'm not going to be able to make back?
Right.
And then also, like Silo Ridge, they have a pool complex, like Bard has a pool, like
Mhm.
these places that can afford to pay more money and the pools get the use. That's what staff will go to. I mean, like when I was on the rec committee and we were short lifeguards, like I went and got certified just to do it on days I was available, I'd pick up some shifts, but
Mhm.
like I was probably atypical in that because I actually had a real job and other stuff going on where it's like, if you're
More than
18 years old, like
that's a cap.
my mom's
all
not going to
around.
drop me off for 3 hours
Mhm.
and then, have to pick me up. So,
Well, we don't need maybe it's 10 hours, some from not a rec person, but
yeah,
some
yeah,
other
whatever.
individual who could drive a lawnmower. 10 hours a week more, I don't know, for the summer
Just to
season.
do-
Sort of seem like.
Just to do the recreation area?
Yeah.
I think that would be, I would spend that money.
How many days a week does Bobby Lee use his mower? Is he every day on it?
I mean,
Well, he does all the
I see him all over the
cemeteries.
place. So
does all the
he is mowing,
cemeteries, all the
but
ball fields,
it's
all the
tough for
parks.
one person.
He's working.
Yeah.
All the time.
He does not shirk work.
Yeah.
No, I just mean,
No, no,
does
all
he
the time.
have the mower every day? Or does he do other stuff that's non-mower related where
Yes,
someone else
he's
could be
clean.
using the
Yeah.
He
mower?
does all
Yeah, he
kinds of
cleans,
things.
he-
does
yeah,
all
yeah.
kinds of
And he
stuff.
cleans and repairs
He
and
constantly works.
works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
So
the thing
someone
is
else
why I
maybe
was like,
just
hey,
from
like if
one
we
day a
have a
week.
bigger tractor or something,
Because we could use them to do some of that maintenance we need to do on the beach area too. They could just pluck
well,
out
because
for this
that's
summer,
the
maybe.
thing too, is like even like we got a
Well, what's
landscaper to
the
come
budget
in, buzz
for
it.
the,
Like I don't,
You said.
but
you
I'm
got a
not
budget
gonna,
line
as
CD.
the director,
Again, we're
for
in the
whatever
middle
costs.
of a budget.
Exactly.
Right.
It's
So
Yeah. Yep.
we
Yep.
have to find the money someplace
Yeah.
if we're going.
And last year was
And that's-
atypical and like
Grounds?
these lessons that are now here. So I just wanted to be forward facing and get them out because I know you guys are
Yeah.
busy with it.
But I mean,
We
this
have a
this is
salary
this is
line,
the planning. I mean,
I
we don't have any
know
problem
how much it's coming, so.
if the money's there.
Yeah.
We don't make new money during the year.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
have
no,
to-
exactly.
you
Yeah,
move-
yeah,
you
yeah.
Move money.
I learned that as I was trying to do the dugouts.
But I mean,
I
so-
get it now.
But if you plan ahead,
Exactly.
then we can do that.
Yep. Are we still live?
Yes.
So
Can we do the executive session
we
just for the
can,
thing?
but we need to move into it. I need,
Oh, okay.
and then we need also to adjourn after it.
I
I
make a
make-
motion, we go into executive session
Second,
For,
for personnel.
personnel issue.
Can I have a second?
Second,
All in favor?
Aye. I make a motion, we come out of executive session
To adjourn.
to adjourn the meeting.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Let me just